Hi, welcome to this Excel tutorial video, and today I'm going to do a video that is an introduction to macros. So a macro is a set of actions that you can record and save and then execute at a later date. So what you want to use a macro for is if you find yourself repeating the same set of commands or the set of actions in Excel, it might be better if you just record those actions, save them, and then you can reproduce them. So I'm going to kind of give you an example of how we do that. This example as well is going to talk about how we can record a macro, first of all, how we can amend a macro. So we're going to go into a bit of code behind Excel and how we can kind of run macros and view how they are being executed. So ideally, you would use a macro to save you time. So if you find yourself repeating the same set of actions, record a macro, and that way you can just press a button and it will execute all of those actions that you've recorded. So let's go through an example. So let us say that at the start of every month, I create a worksheet and I give that worksheet a particular header for this month's worth of data. So let me just record a macro to create that header for me. So down here at the bottom left, next to the word ready, I've got this little box. Currently it says no macros. When I hover over it, it says no macros are currently recording. Click to begin recording a new macro. So if I click that button, I get this record macro box pop up, and I want to give my macro a name. So I'm going to call this create header. What you can do is you can give your macro a shortcut. So you can say Control and this key will, or this button will execute my macro. So already you've got things like Control C for copy, Control V for paste, Control Z for undo. So you've got to be careful about what you select here. But if I do maybe Control and H, or Control Shift and H, in fact, so Control and H must be already selected. So I put H in there. Control Shift and H is my shortcut key to execute my macro. I can give it a description. My macro is going to be in this workbook. That's all fine. And I want to click OK. Right now, my macro is recording, so whatever I do, every keystroke I do now is going to be recorded. So if I go here, that's recorded. If I go here, that's recorded. So let me begin by creating my header. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to type customer here, customer name, address 1, address 2, and here I'm going to put a couple of subheaders. Okay, so that's my text all created. I'm going to make everything bold. I am going to make these centered. I'm going to make these centered and merge them. I'm going to make this little subset here one color, and I'm going to make this little subset here another color. And I am going to make that wider. I think that's it. All I need to do with my macro is that header there. So now I'm going to stop. Now my macro exists, and the way we see our macros is we go to the developer tab here. If you don't have the developer tab, it isn't, as a rule, Excel out of the box doesn't give you the developer tab. You've got to go and make it visible. So if you don't have the developer tab, go to File, go to Options, go to Customize Ribbon, and there will be this box next to developer won't be ticked. If you tick that, click OK, the developer tab will be visible. Now if you click on developer, you've got this option here on the left hand side about macros, and if we select the macros option, we now have this macro called create header. For now though, I'm just going to cancel that. Let's just test that our macro works. If I click on a new sheet and I do Control Shift and H, it creates our header. So that's exactly what I want. So that could be January and this could be February. And then if I click on the new one here, Control Shift and H, and there's the headers for March. Now, what the macro does is when you run it, it just goes through all of the steps that you did when you're recording your macro. So let us have a look at how that looks in the code. So I'm going to go to macros here, and there's a list of our macros. We've only got one. If I click on edit, it will bring up, it will bring up this window here that shows each of the steps that were actioned during the recording of the macro. And there it all is here. And you can see customer name, address, 1, 2, 3. See all of the text that I've been putting in. So let's imagine that I'm looking at my macro, I'm thinking, actually, I don't want that to be address 3 anymore. I want it to be postcode. So I could record a macro again, but by far the easiest way would be to amend my existing macro. So if I'm going to go to macros, select edit, there's my bit that says address 3. If I change that to be postcode, close it. If I click on a new worksheet, if I do Control Shift and H, it now creates my, runs my macro, but it's got postcode instead of address 3. So let us go back to macros and edit. Let's look at this again. You can see that the macro will execute from top to bottom. You've got this thing here called create header. A macro is generally, like I said, just a set of actions. It's wrapped around this thing called a sub. So at the top is sub, at the bottom is end sub here. And all of the actions within that sub create header in this case, it runs from top to bottom. So it goes to cell A2, puts in customer, goes to B2, puts in customer name. So I can make any amendments here and it will amend the macro for any future executions of that macro. So you can see all of the order details and everything that I've done. I then selected A2 to H2, which is everything, and I made it bold. So you can see all of these steps. If I just put a little range A2 to H2, bold equals true, and then I've got these bits here where I selected C1 to E1, and I did the merge and center, the selection merge. So each of these things, each of these little blocks of code achieves a particular action. So let us say then that I want to change it ever so slightly again, and actually I don't want it to be green, this section here, I want it to be a different color. So it's not like me changing text where I can change address 3 to be postcode. I actually need to know the code of the color that I want to select. If I just go back to macros and edit again, if we just go down here, you've got this color selection C1 to E2 color, and that's yellow. And then this one here, F1 to H2, the color, that is whatever color green I've got. So I need to know this kind of color code. So in order to do that, I could record a new macro. So let us click on this again, record a new macro. I'm going to say make orange. And I'm going to go to my home. This macro is now running. I'm going to go to here and I'm going to select orange. And then I'm going to stop my macro. You need to remember to stop your macro, otherwise you're going to record loads of actions that you don't want to record. So I'll stop that macro. If I go to developer and I go to macros, I've got now this new macro called make orange. If I edit that, you'll see it's at the bottom of here. I'll just put a little return here. I've got this sub make orange and this end sub, and within that it simply says the selection, the cell that I've got selected, interior, make the color this code here. So if I copy that code here and I replace it, this code with that orange colored code, now if I go to here and I do Control-Shift-H, it's now made that orange instead of the green. So let's have a little look at one more thing to do with this. If we just go to a new sheet, if I go to macros, if I edit my, right now I'm finished with orange, by the way, make orange, so I can delete that. That's gone. Go back to macros. If I edit my create header, I've now only got the one create header. I can execute the macro from in here. So I am within this create header section here. And while I'm in here with my cursor, I can press this play button and it will execute all of these actions from top to bottom. There it is. You can see on the left hand side, it's created that header. So if I just create a new one of these and I go back to here, what you can do is, if you imagine you created a macro and it isn't quite working as you want it to, it's getting so far, then you're getting some sort of funny error and you don't know at what point you're getting the error. What you're able to do is, in this window, you can, like I've just shown you can execute the macro, but what you can do is you can put this thing called a breakpoint. So within this margin here, this gray bit, at any point you can put, just using the left-hand mouse, a breakpoint. What that means is you can execute your macro and it will stop. It will execute everything up to the breakpoint and then it will stop. So I might put a breakpoint here. And then you have control over each action running one at a time as you want it to run. So let me just execute this. What it will do is it'll run this line, this line, this line, this line, all the way to here. Then it will stop and wait for me to tell it to run. So I want to press this now. So what it's done is it's created a customer. You can see customer name, address, 1, 2, and postcode. It's got to this point here. You can see it's yellow, and that's where we are up to. Within this debug drop down here, you've got this option of step into, and that's what we want to do. So it's got a shortcut key of F8. So if I, within this window, if I press F8, it'll go down to the next action, which is range G2 select. So it's just completed that action, which is order. It's on here, but it hasn't ran this line of code yet. So the next thing it should do is select G2. If I press F8, you can see G2 selected. If I press F8 again, you can see it's put the word amount in. And then if I press it again, it goes to H2 and it puts date. And if I continually click F8, it's going to complete all of these actions as you see them. So you can see at what point, what these actions are doing. You can see this selection.merge. You can see what it's doing as you click down with your F8. You can see it changing the color to yellow. And this is just a good way of viewing your code if you've got any kind of errors. And then when you're happy, if you press F5, it will finish off all of the actions. And then if you want to remove that, click on that and remove it. A little bit more maybe than an introduction to macros, but that's the end of this video at the minute. If you've got any questions, please let me know. Hopefully you found something that was interesting or something that was helpful in this video. Thanks a lot for your time. See you next time.